maximum and put it into Z. We'll test it. Okay, that's the first thing we have to do is to test the program. Does it work the way it is supposed to? That's the question. Okay. And to test this program, there are several ways to do it. We can do the same thing and set the variable in the program itself. We can also just go ahead and force the value to change by using a slide. And also, I guess we can only use a slide. And we can slide the W value to. Okay, let's just make W the largest. Okay, 45, and we'll make Z smaller than that. Oops. Sorry, my bad. Okay, we want W to be largest, so Y has to be smaller. There we go. Okay, so if I try to find the maximum of 45, 13, and 18, which one is the maximum? 45. So that means if I run the program, Z should get a value of 45 when it's all done. So we go ahead and run the program, and it worked just fine, right? So next, I want to test, okay, what about if I make X the maximum of the 3? Okay, so this time I rerun the program using 45 as W, 70 as X, 18 as Y. The maximum should be 70. I run the program, and sure enough, Z gets a value of 70. So I'm fairly confident that the program is working just fine. But I will just test it one more time, but this time making Y the maximum, because that seems to be the third possible case. I ran the program again, and it worked. Okay, but the program is not actually working properly. Okay, because there are test cases that I have not used yet to see if it works properly. Can someone give me a particular case where this program would not work? Yep.
If one of the variables is equal to another one.
Okay, so let's pick. Let's say W and X are both the maximum at the same time. Okay. In other words, in this particular case, I only have to make, let's say, Y instead of X. So I'll make Y the same. I'll make W the same as Y. In this case, we have W being 93, X being 70, and Y being 93 as well. So what is the maximum of these three numbers? 93. In other words, if the program works properly, Z should get a value of 93. And this is not right. Okay, Z has a value of 93 because of the previous time that I ran the program. I have to run the program again after I make changes to the variables. I run again, and it still worked. Oh, I know. We have to make X the same as W, not Y. It picked up the Y, as the else case here. Okay. Are we convinced that Z should still be 93 when this is all done? Yes? Okay. And I think it will still work in this case. I think the program is actually correct. Yep.
Why don't we set the we could set X as like a 20 and then the W as a 30, so that could maybe the Z variable might be static, so it might not change throughout the whole program. You know what I mean? It's probably like 93 and it stays 93.
No, it does not, because I can run the program again, it gets back to 93. So I'm pretty sure the program is working, correctly.
Work because if it gets to W and all of them are equal, then it doesn't matter anyway.
Right.
If it gets to W and only two of them are equal, then one of the other variables had to be less either way.
Yep.
So that's
you are correct. So I think the program works now because I don't have the end inside it. Because if I have the end inside, then it won't work. Do we have any questions about this program? No? Okay. And that's basically a conditional statement. It doesn't do something again and again. It just makes a decision.
If they're all equal, does it still work?
Oh, if they're all equal, I already know that it has to work because Z gets the value from one of those three, and if they're all equal, it will get the same value anyway. Right? So if I change this, change the Z to 5 to begin with, just to make sure that it is updated. It is still updated to 93. So this program works just fine because I changed the logic from the original one, which is using the AND also in the inside. That makes it not work. So are we doing okay with the concept of a conditional statement? It gives the program the ability to choose one path or the other based on a condition. Okay. Any questions about this? Yep.
You could run the same kind of a program choosing 3 if statements rather than nesting if else, correct?
Using 3 statements.
So
Okay, yes you can, but if you use 3 statements, it is actually not equivalent to this program here. So it all depends. Okay, I know what your question is. Let me start a new program to talk about that. Okay. So here we start a new program, and this time we'll make something a little bit more interesting. We'll basically have Scratch to ask a question, like a person's name, and then depending on the name, we'll print different stuff. We'll say different things. Okay. So we'll go ahead and have. Is it sensing? Yeah, it is sensing. So we'll have Scratch to ask a question. What is your name? We'll keep that. Okay. So we'll basically just have Scratch to ask a name, and then we go to control, and then we use the conditional statements to say different things when depending on what the name is. Okay. So we'll go ahead and go to operators and use the comparison operator to check what is the name that is entered. And we'll be sensing the answer. We're using the answer and compare that to something. So we'll just go ahead and make a simple example. If the answer is tack, then we'll go ahead and say something bad about him. So let's think about something that's bad about tack. So we'll go ahead and think for 5 seconds. Okay, and then we can say his classes are boring. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and terminate the program just like that, because what we want to do is just to confirm that it does work. Okay, because at this point I'm just trying to confirm that the comparison of an answer to tag, which is a string, a name, I want to make sure that it works. So we'll run the program and type my name, press the enter key, and sure enough, Scratch says his classes are boring, just as we expected. We run the program again. Now, just because it confirms this one doesn't mean the program has to be working correctly, because what if I type a name that is not tagged? Okay, so we got to check that as well. So we'll type somebody else's name who is well known to have not so boring classes. Let's say we type Larry Dumas. And Scratch did not say anything. Okay, so the program seems to be working. Okay, so now what we want to do is to say, if I want to check multiple cases, is it the same as if I use a if then else and nest it, or separate it into multiple statements? Now what I want to do in this case is to also say something if a name is long. I'm just making fun of people with long names. Okay. So don't feel offended. I'm just using it as an example. If your name turns out to be long, that's not my intent. So what I can do in this case is to compare the length of the name. So in this case, I can compare the length of something to, let's say, 10 characters. If a name is more than 10 characters, I will say, oh, what a long name. And obviously, I'm not going to check the length of world. Instead, I'm just going to check the length of the answer to the question. Is that making any sense? Okay. And then we can go back to looks. And, well, I guess we can just duplicate this one, stash it here, and then say, whoops. What a long name. Okay, I don't think that's offensive. It's just a long name. Okay. So we'll go ahead and try this one out and see what happens. So we'll type tack, and it only says his classes are boring, and then it's done because tack only has 3 characters. It does not trigger the execution of the second logic. Now, what if I change the first one so it doesn't look for tag, instead it looks for my entire name, tag Aoyang, okay, which has 11 characters, including the space. Is that okay? Does everybody understand what I'm talking about? Tag only has 3 letters, but tag space AUYEUNG will occupy 11 spaces, 11 spots. So this time, what do you think will happen? Let's say if I just type my name tag. Nothing happens, because tag does not match tag Aoyang, and it is also shorter than 10 characters, so nothing happens. If I run it again, and this time I use both, okay, I use both my first name and my last name, then it will first say his classes are boring, and then it will say what a long name. Are you guys convinced that this is the expected behavior? Because the conditional statements are they're sequential to each other. I do one conditional statement, it will do its own thing, whether or not print his classes are boring, and then we move on to the second conditional statement, which will determine whether to say something about what a long name. Okay, so that's why it can do one or the other, neither of both, or both. Now, if I change the program and restructure the program a little bit, so let me save this program again first, and we'll call it separate ifs, because we have 2 if statements. Now we'll save it again in a different name. This time we'll call it nested if. Now, nested if means that I would put one conditional statement inside another conditional statement. So I will go back to control, and this time instead of using just if, I would use if else. Okay? And I can just drag and drop these things because I'm going to use exactly the same condition here. And what I will do is I'm going to put an if else inside here, and which will check for, say, the second condition. So I'll put this one over here, and then we'll stash this here, we'll stash this here, and then get rid of this part here, put the program back together. And this is intentionally left empty, just in case I have more cases to check. So the behavior of this program is now going to be different, because if I put in the name tag Aoyang, it will match the first condition. It will print his classes are boring for 5 seconds, and we are done. Okay? It won't even bother to check for the second condition, because we only go to the second condition because it's in the part of the else. We only check the second condition if the name is not tag Aoyang. Okay, so we'll go ahead and run the program just to verify this is exactly what it will do. Run the program again. This time I'll enter tag, which does not match tag Aoyang, and it is also less than or equal to 10 characters long. So in this case, it should not print anything, just like the previous program. Okay, so that's fine. Next, we'll enter my entire name, tag Aoyang, and press the enter key. It prints, his classes are boring, which is expected, and it's done. It does not go to check whether it is a long name or not. Okay. Now we'll go for the third case. So this time we'll go for a longer name. Okay. That's more than 10 characters. Bill is 4, Clinton is 7, plus the space, so it's definitely more than 10 characters long. So if I press the run, when I press the check symbol here, it will just print what a long name. So these 2 programs have slightly different behavior. They're not exactly the same. Sometimes they seem to be the same, but they're actually not the same. Okay? Are there any questions about the difference?